Today we're talking about food. Grab a snack, grab a meal. I know half of you guys are already eating already because you can't eat a meal without watching a YouTube video. It's okay, myself included. I'm actually my own favorite comfort YouTuber. I just fire up my own videos and just start eating. I'm just kidding. How crazy would that be though? I feel like that'd be a little psychotic. Anyway, today we're talking about food, more specifically food as a status symbol. Is food the hot new luxury item to flex on the gram? To me, it seems like it, and a lot of people also seem to agree.
You really know we've reached late stage capitalism when food and drinks have become status symbols and accessories. Because if we post an Erewhon review on TikTok, then people know that we can afford to go to Erewhon and buy a $30 smoothie. Or if we post a photo on Instagram, it looks very aesthetic and then it's desirable. And I think the rise in people flocking to Erewhon is a prime example.
With grocery prices rising and the slowed economy, basic necessities like food are becoming more and more expensive that it feels like a luxury. And now we're seeing celebrities even use food as decoration, as something to be discarded and not eaten, but simply to display their wealth, opulence, and abundance.
As food becomes more expensive, it is basically being positioned as a luxury category because it is becoming very expensive to afford it. So what screams wealth and excess wealth more than having an excess of food that you are not going to even eat, that is particularly off season, and it is now just tablescape for your parties? At least that's what I predicted was going to happen in 2024. And in our first month, the Kardashians are out saying, yes, we agree. Kim posted this. She was at a dinner party. Looks amazing. But no one was eating. It's there just to show an abundance. Khloe Kardashian actually posted this in like this 3rd or 4th day of January. And this is a bouquet of flowers that she either received or ordered. And they literally have oranges in it. It's not being consumed. And it's simply for people to look at and see. And oranges were actually one of the largest food shortages last year in America. So there's this whole big thing where like they brought out this cake and it's literally sitting on Dolly Parton pre-made cake mix. Really interesting how we're seeing food being used, not just wasted, not just as decor, but now as a prop to prop up other food, more luxurious food that these upper classes would not eat. Like they are not buying this Dolly Parton cake mix from the store. They're using it to prop up their actual food that they're using.
Food trends have always been around, but it seems like food has become a lot more integral in the way that we express fashion, trends, and lifestyle. Being a clean girl isn't just about the matching aloe set you wear, it's also about the sweet green you buy after your Pilates class or the matcha lattes that you drink every day. Eating healthy and eating mostly organic food has always been something that seems to be exclusive for people who are more financially abundant, but now more than ever it seems like these organic food hauls or Erewhon hauls are extremely popular and infiltrating our TikTok and Instagram feeds and influencer culture. Something as simple as buying groceries is a flex now, and it seems like America is really in its recession core. So let's dive deep into this and let's talk about food as the new luxury status symbol. There's a lot to unpack here, different corners of this topic that I want to cover, so this is going to be a pretty long one. So again, get your kava, get your sweet green or whatever corporate mush that you can scarf down during your lunch break. I just listened to a podcast from Bingetopia that talked about that, and I thought that was really interesting because I've been thinking about that for a while, and there's some overlays there in that podcast that are going to show up in this video. So I mentioned Erewhon, and I really want to dive deep into Erewhon and their whole story and the culture around Erewhon because I really think they are like a foundation for this topic. If you don't know what Erewhon is, it is a luxury grocery store based in LA, known for their comically high prices. The only place in the country, it seems, where you can get a $25 carton of strawberries or a $30 bag of ice. I find the hype and the culture around Erewhon very fascinating because although it is extremely expensive, they have a cult-like following, and I'm wondering who is it who is buying these $30 bags of ice? The pre-made food, the smoothies are more what people are interested in, as well as the social scene attached to Erewhon. But to me, as an outsider, it almost seems like going to an amusement park, people traveling far and wide to see the one and only Erewhon up close and personal, spending that much money on something that you could probably buy for like $2 anywhere else. It feels masochistic, but I guess it's also a part of the experience, you know? You're only going to get a chance to do it once, or maybe multiple times, and you can take out a third job, which yes, people do that. I have a whole article about that I will talk about later. But yeah, it's kind of like going to In-N-Out, but more health conscious. So in short, Erewhon is not just a grocery store. It's a lifestyle. A place for the clean girls to go to after their Equinox Pilates classes. It's not just a place where you pick up some marinara sauce for your bolognese that night. It's a place to frolic, to flaunt, to flex, to network. I don't know if people network at Erewhon, but that feels right to me. I totally stole that line about the lifestyle thing from Equinox too, because their slogan is literally, it's not fitness, it's life. A little intense, but I asked my friend Rumi if he's been to Erewhon because he lives in LA, and he's like, yeah, you know, it's kind of a place where people just go to socialize, and mostly they buy the smoothies and stuff rather than the actual groceries. Speaking of Rumi, we started a podcast, the Shameless Promo Podcast. If you want to go check it out, it's going to be linked in the description. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We will be posting a podcast episode every Thursday all about celebrity and influencer side hustles and business ventures. Our first episode, which is already out, is about the rise and fall of Kim K Hollywood and other celebrity game apps. So if you're interested in that, go check it out. You'd be surprised how many celebrities have a fame game app. Britney Spears, Demi Lovato. It's a fun episode. Next episode is going to be about celebrity hair care. We talk about Rihanna's hair care and Beyonce's hair care line and why every celebrity seemingly has a hair care line now. So yeah, thank you to MeUndies for sponsoring today's video. Comfort is more than just a dream this summer with MeUndies' new Dream Seam line. Get 20% off your first order plus free shipping at MeUndies.com/Madison. So MeUndies sent me a couple of items, one of which is their new bandeau. This is really cool because it has straps, but they're removable. So if you need that extra support, you can keep them or you can take them off. And it also comes with pads, but you can also remove those as well. So they really give you some options with this very versatile bandeau, which I love. MeUndies in general is very versatile as a brand. They have a wide range of silhouettes and styles as well as sizes from extra small to 4XL. The second item they sent me from the Dream Seam line is the thong. It's super comfortable, super soft and buttery. I love the fabric. It's very comfortable on the skin and lightweight. It's called Dream Seam for a reason, so it doesn't show through any of your clothes. As someone who wears a lot of dresses and like form-fitting outfits, I tend to have this problem with underwear, but I do not have that problem with their underwear at all. And there's no like itchy tags or anything on it that'll bug you throughout the day. So it really is just super seamless and you don't feel it at all when you're wearing it throughout the day, which is always something I'm looking for in any underwear that I'm wearing. So if you're interested in MeUndies, click that link in the description, MeUndies.com/Madison for 20% off your first purchase. Thank you again to MeUndies for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to the scheduled programming. Thank you. Let's get into some history, shall we? Some lore, as the kids like to say. So Erewhon's story starts back in the 1960s with Aveline Yokoyama and Micho Kushi, two health freaks in love. They couldn't find any good food in the States after moving here and made it their mission to preach the good word of George Osawa. George Osawa was a very influential health guru of this time, who the cut writer Kelly Howley describes as a 50-something sage who told Japan's bomb-terrorized youth he knew a better way. He believed the only way to ensure world peace was, essentially, to eat more whole grains. Sugar was poison, vegetables were good, though never eggplant or potatoes. Meat? Out of the question. One had to balance yin foods with yang ones, a conceptual framework that came not from Japan but China. Each food was one or the other, a compendium of knowledge one could spend forever studying. So, have any of you guys heard of the phrase senpaku eyes? I've heard people talk about it on TikTok a couple times, like, oh, this celebrity has senpaku eyes. It basically means, like, you know, if you have whites around your eyes that are visible, that you may die early or die a tragic death, and they were big believers in this. They thought that if they had white around three sides, you were senpaku, which, among many other things, suggested the risk of dying a violent death. He called his diet macrobiotic. Also, apologies if I'm mispronouncing these Japanese words. I'm not a Japanese speaker, but I'm trying my best as a good old American who only knows English and a little bit of French. So this whole macrobiotic diet thing feels a lot like a cult. In the article that I'm pulling these quotes from, Aveline was like allowed permission to leave, to go to America, and again spread the good word of the macrobiotic diet and stuff. And it's just very restrictive and for reasons I don't fully understand, that don't really feel like they're backed up by science. So anyways, moving on. Michio and Aveline it was hard for them to keep up this diet in the States. Organic food wasn't really a thing that people cared about in the 60s unless you were a hippie. Organic health food stores weren't around really, so Erewhon really changed the game. They were really the ones to start bringing in organic health foods into the US. They started from humble beginnings. They were selling brown rice and sea vegetables out of their apartment. Michio lectured, Aveline cooked. They had restaurants, an institute, a magazine. In their home, their children bagged grains to distribute to the students. Michio and Aveline wanted a place where they could sell the kinds of foods integral to their diet, so they opened a tiny store below street level, almost a stall, with bins full of loose grain and seeds on Newbury Street in Boston. It was 1966. You could buy 10 pounds of bulk food for a couple of dollars. They would call it Erewhon, an anagram of nowhere after Samuel Butler's satirical novel of the same name, one of Osawa's favorite books. Okay, I briefly want to touch on this book because, I've never read it, but it seems like Osawa took the satirical nature of the novel very literally. So Erewhon is a book about a utopian society in which individuals are responsible for their own health. Or at least that is what the Erewhon store Wikipedia says, but it's really a satirical novel where characters are prosecuted not for ethical breaches but for the crime of being ill. Citizens hide their illnesses at all costs. So Aveline actually has a memoir, and in the memoir she says that Osawa would say that sick people should be sent to jail and criminals should be sent to the hospital. She and the others admired this imaginary realm. And I just find that so interesting and very telling about the mentality of this group of people who really believe in this macrobiotic diet. Obviously, whenever there's this kind of extreme diet, there's a belief that it's healthier, that it'll keep you living longer. And so the strict nature of this diet is really what I think caused the downfall of Erewhon, or the lack of success during this era of the store. They were making about $25 a day in sales, and they racked up a lot of debt. When they were trying to expand their businesses, it obviously required other outsourcing and making deals with other farms around the country, and they just couldn't sustain themselves. By 1978, annual sales were at around $10 million. In 79, they sold a West Coast store to an employee, Tom DeSilva, and by 1981, they were going bankrupt and liquidated their East Coast stores. The store really wasn't managed well. Like I said, very strict diet, the macrobiotic diet. No potatoes, so they didn't sell potatoes. No eggplants, bananas, yogurt, just normal things that people buy, they wouldn't sell because it didn't align with their diet. And what grocery store is going to have booming success when they don't even sell potatoes or yogurt or things that normal people like to eat? By the 80s, other health food stores started popping up and sold the things that Erewhon wouldn't. It was hard competition, needless to say. So they really struggled for a long time, and it wasn't until 2011 where things really started to turn around. That's when Tony and Josephine Tochi, who were previously owners of a mineral water business as well as a food distribution company, bought Erewhon from Libby DeSilva, which is Tom DeSilva's wife, who owned the company after Aveline and Michio. And this is where we get to modern day Erewhon and the store that we all know and love it as today. When they bought the store, they were immediately like, oh, what is this? What refrigerator, child? We need to get you a home.
I was shocked, honey. I was in tears almost. And they had a white refrigerator. I was like, oh, not a white refrigerator. Girl, please put your shoes on. Let's go find you a home.
They were like, this place needs to be made over completely. Josephine said that the hot bar resembled jail food and the store smelled horribly. She was running the business for 8 years on a pipe dream, Tony says. Not to say anything negative about hairdressers, but a hairdresser does not understand the retail grocery business. 6 months later, the deal closed April 1st, 2011. The Antochis owned Erewhon. When they took ownership of it, it was averaging weekly sales of $180,000. Today, our store average is $900,000, Tony says, but don't write that down. Well, they wrote it down, so I'm not sure. Anyway, I'm not sure how that happened, but the main reason why Erewhon is so successful today is because it was taken over by experienced business owners, not like a couple passionate about a niche Japanese diet. Not too surprised there. Tony and Tochi's philosophy around health food is pretty interesting. It's definitely very different from the founders, the original founders of Erewhon, but it makes a lot of sense and is something that I never would have thought of, but really reveals like the ethos of Erewhon and why it is so successful. People may want natural food, but nature itself is the inconsistent chaos from which they and their food have been delivered. They do not want nature, but its opposite. Civilization, control, and experience designed down to the inch. They want custom millwork and imported glazed tile. They want color breaks in the vegetables, not lettuce, then spinach, but lettuce, then radish, then spinach, such that the radishes pop hard from the sea of green. So on the surface, it may seem kind of silly, or like it's such a tiny detail, like, okay, you're not putting green vegetables next to each other, you're like putting different colored vegetables in between, but it really creates this aesthetic that I don't think people realize they want or desire, but it really taps into this unconscious part of our brain that just makes us go, ooh. And, you know, a big part of Erewhon is the experience of it, the layout, the aesthetic, which is why it's so popular on social media, because it looks pretty, not just the layout of the store, but the food. And there's so much thought put into how things look and how they're presented. And I feel like especially in a place like LA, presentation really matters and is something that people value. So although these minute details seem like they shouldn't matter or they wouldn't matter, it actually is a big reason why Erewhon is so successful. And, you know, I think he's right about like people wanting natural food, but they don't want like the ugliness associated with nature or like farming even. Sure, nature is beautiful and gorgeous in its own right, but for a place like Erewhon, it's a beauty that's curated and separates the consumer from all of the kind of ugliness or all of the labor even behind these beautiful looking produce items. For some reason this is coming to mind, but it kind of reminds me of the video I made about homesteading and how it's really glamorized and romanticized online through like this cottagecore aesthetic lens. But in reality, owning a farm is a lot of work, and it's ugly and it's gross. You're like picking up chicken and pig and shoveling dirt and mud, and you're dirty and you're grimy, but no one wants to look at that. No one wants to see that. They just want the image of like a nice wispy white woman frolicking in a field with a white dress twirling in a meadow of daisies or whatever. So to me, that feels the same as like Erewhon and the aesthetics of it and like how natural food is presented. It's a very romantic thing. Erewhon's interiors focus on natural raw materials, a nod to the raw natural selection, and exposed food prep kitchens that communicates honesty. "We've got nothing to hide," Mr. Chipret says. He was inspired by 4-star hotels and luxury clothing shops and wanted extra wide aisles to evoke an airy, open feeling. So FYI, Yuval Chipret is the Chief Development Officer of Erewhon, and it is not shocking to me at all that he took inspiration from 4-star restaurants and hotels, because it seems like that's the vibe it gives off. So it's a luxury food store after all, so I guess, you know, it should, right? You know, if someone were to ask me like, oh, what is Erewhon? Like, what is the type of person that goes to Erewhon? What's the vibe? I would say like, oh, it's like the Nobu of grocery stores, or like a place people go to after their yoga class at Equinox. Like, that's just kind of the vibe it gives off. And of course I find a quote that literally says, "It's a world so immersive and considered that one would easily picture it becoming, say, a full-service restaurant or a spa or even a hotel, as Nobu and Equinox have." So there you go. So going back to the photogenic food thing, obviously Erewhon's coveted, most popular staple item is their smoothies. The Hailey Bieber smoothie, for example, that costs $20. Not only does the price alone give people pause and make them clutch their pearls, but also I think what makes the smoothie so popular is the way that they look. They're very beautiful. You just want to eat it just as much as you want to take a picture of it and post it on Instagram. What's interesting about that, which I learned this from the On Brand podcast, who did an amazing episode all about Erewhon, which you guys should definitely go check out. I'll link it in the description, is that the first smoothie that was associated with a person was actually Tinks, the TikToker. And because she involved Erewhon so much into her content, I guess she got her own smoothie. And it was originally quite brown looking, and people in the comments were like, girl, why is it brown? Why does it why does it look like mud, something from the ground? And so I guess Erewhon and the team were like, you're right, commenter, let's go back to the drawing board and make a prettier smoothie. And so now we get the beautiful Hailey Bieber smoothies and other celebrity endorsed smoothies. I think Olivia Rodrigo has one, Sabrina Carpenter just came out with one, and I think that perfectly aligns with the brand and what their priorities are, is to have beautiful looking foods and a beautiful looking store that beautiful looking people shop at. You know, you get the vibe. Now, this quote I find very interesting. Chypriot says, "The body senses mistakes," says Yuval Chypriot, who designed the interiors of the 7 stores. "The body senses something not right with the space," explaining the strategic layout of the store. "You walk in," he says, "and you are the center of the story." I don't know why, but that just that makes sense for Erewhon. And we're going to talk more about what it means to be the type of person to shop at Erewhon and why people want to be associated with that. Again, I'm not from LA. I've never lived there. I've only been there once. But I think it's safe to say that the general vibe or understanding of the city of LA is that it attracts people who want to be famous and are very kind of self-obsessed. And again, this is a very generic surface level kind of perspective on LA. I know that's not what the entire city is like or what everyone there is like, but that's the general reputation. Something I read in an article about Erewhon actually is the people in LA are very self-aware of the kind of absurd and opulent culture of LA, and they're happy to indulge in it. It's yeah, we know that this is ridiculous, but we kind of love that and we participate in it. So I feel it makes sense that a grocery store so popular in LA has this intention of making the individual shoppers feel like they're the center of the universe when they go into that store. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. So another reason why Erewhon got so popular was actually because of the pandemic. So during the pandemic, obviously everything was shut down except for grocery stores because it was deemed essential. And Erewhon is a grocery store. Aren't I so smart? So with the outdoor seating and the pre-made foods and just the general vibe, and it really attracted people there because it gave them an excuse to socialize with people. It's also just a nice place to be. It's really pretty and just a nice environment, but the outdoor seating really is what made it so popular during the pandemic, I think. During the pandemic, Erewhon sales increased 30%, according to Tony, and they've increased another 30% since then. I do think that community is actually a big reason why people shop at Erewhon. My boy Yuval talks about how he intentionally made the store's layout quite close together to bring people closer, to increase that proximity, especially in a place like LA where everyone's spread out, everyone's in their cars. You could go days without touching someone, talking to someone, compared to New York where you're always around people and you're all so close together. But it does create a sense of community, and he wanted to kind of replicate that vibe in Erewhon. At Erewhon, small spaces are redefined as curating an experience of connective energy. The aisles are narrow and very tall, like the stacks in a university library. There's a quiet in the corridor, a sense of privacy there among the $18 jarred macaroons. You could easily have a private meeting in the sanctuary of an aisle. Erewhon Vice President Widener says he often does, that one cannot possibly reach much of the inventory and part of the design. You have to ask for help, and there are inevitably 3 people in the vicinity happy to provide it. It is this, as much as anything, that feels luxurious in our time, a store in which there is a staff. I think a lot of the success also has to do with the cultural shift that happened in the States around health and food. Like I said, only hippies really cared about organic food back in the 60s, and by 2011, stores like Whole Foods existed, so it wasn't something that was a weird foreign concept, and a lot of people started to care more about their health, especially with the growing knowledge about what's in our food, especially in the United States, because it's no secret that the government is literally trying to poison us. Health is cool now. Health is wealth. Health is wealth, I think, has been personified now more than ever. I don't know if it's cool anymore these days to have a Bud Light jumping off of a cliff. You know? Mr. Widener says, it's cool to have a green juice in your hand and jump off a cliff. Truer words have never been spoken. I mean, it's true. People are switching out their hard seltzers for, I was gonna say hard kombucha, which is a thing, but I don't think it's cool to flex on the poison that you're putting in your body, people these days are a lot more aware of not just food, but also like health and wellness and healthy habits like meditating and yoga and hot girl walks, exercise. Like that is cool now. That's why we have tropes like the clean girl. People aspire to be these like really healthy versions of themselves, whether it's for an aesthetic or for a genuine interest in their health. I don't think it's bad necessarily. Like even if you're being a poser in health, it's still better than not trying to care for your body at all. And I think mental health and the awareness around that has also kind of catapulted this because, surprise, eating healthy and exercising does actually improve your mental health. It's true. Celebrities like Gwyneth Paltrow have been big promoters of health and wellness as well. And so we're just seeing how health and wellness, how many times am I going to say that in this video, have popped up in our popular culture. In the early aughts, Hollywood stars partied all night and were photographed woozily leaving bars like Teddy's and Hyde Lounge for magazines like Us Weekly. Today, many young people eat organic stews, work I'm sorry, I don't know why organic stews is like of all the things, like, yes, young people are eating organic stews. I love an organic stew. They're not wrong. Okay, let me lock in. Today, many young people eat organic stews, work out and meditate, posting their regimens to social media in hopes of going viral. Listen, I am young people. I have vlogs. Go check them out on my second channel where I'm like at the gym, eating healthy. But it's great. I love that young people are caring more about their health. Excess is out and moderation is in, at least outwardly so. Gen Z is sober curious. We drink way less alcohol than previous generations. There's songs, lyrics that reflect this shift in culture. I think of Fruit Salad by Tierra Whack, for example. I eat all my vegetables, lower my cholesterol. I mean, you know it's like mainstream and popular when a pop star is talking about going to her team meeting and then having a meditation at like 1:30. If you know, you know. Just like Magic by Ariana Grande. It's a song about manifesting, which is also a big thing in the zeitgeist, which I would argue is a part of like the wellness trend that's gone on for the past couple of years. I've observed, and I saw a great TikTok about this, that trends are no longer about individual items, like fashion items. Like in 2020 when everyone was wearing that green dress, it's not just about these really like hyper trendy specific things. It's about embodying an aesthetic that is heavily tied, if not centered around a lifestyle. For example, the pink Pilates princess, the clean girl, like I mentioned before.
What do you guys think is the House of Sunny dress of the summer?
I think you guys are going to be really surprised by my answer, but I don't think there is one. And I want to explain how microtrends look in 2024 compared to 2020. So microtrends used to describe singular items that reached peak popularity extremely quickly and obsolescence just as fast. They were singular items. So the Lyrica Matoshi strawberry dress, the Amazon course. And that's not to say there are no longer microtrends, but they have certainly become much more insidious by blurring the lines between the things we wear, the things we buy, and what kind of person that makes us. In my opinion, aesthetics as a whole have replaced microtrends. Aesthetics have become more and more niche and specific. Aesthetics don't just comprise of clothing items, they comprise of everything that make up an aesthetic, especially the things and brands that we buy. People will even describe themselves as like a Pilates, Samba, aloe yoga, green juice girl. It's not necessarily about the specific singular item. That is less important now than it was in 2020. It's kind of like subscribing to this very cookie cutter mold of whatever aesthetic you are chasing after. And it also doesn't end with clothing. And brands have definitely caught on. This is an example. Lisa Says God just collabed with Fishwife. Both are very trendy in their own right. One's clothing, one's tinned fish. This whole thing is, I think, the direction microtrends are heading in, because brands know it's not just about the clothing anymore. The world of trends and participating in trends is so much more expansive, and the pressure to consume things in many different categories that fit under one aesthetic is just much more than I've ever seen in my lifetime personally.
An aesthetic doesn't just reflect what kind of clothes you wear, but what kind of life you live. As Tinks would say, where you buy your kale chips says a lot about you. And I think that is a big part of like why people shop at Erewhon or buy their food at Sweet Green or whatever. Like, you want to be the type of person who goes to these places, who eats that kind of food. You know, it's like, and they said this in the Binge-topia episode, Julia was like, yeah, like when I go to Sweet Green, I'm like, guys, I went to Sweet Green. Did you notice? Like I'm healthy. Like, you know, it's just like a feeling. It's a thing that people want to embody. And I totally get that. I mean, listen, bitch, I have an Equinox membership, okay? I love my Equinox membership. I use that Equinox membership. When I first joined, I was like, oh my God, like, I'm an Equinox girl. Like, I'm leaving Equinox, like, there's a group of paparazzi waiting to photograph me. Like, do you see me? Yes, I'm leaving it. I'm leaving the Nox. Oh, nobody calls it that. It's a brand. It's a vibe, you know? And I mean, obviously Equinox or a place like Erewhon, it's not just about the health aspect. It's also like, oh, you have money to be able to do that. Like it signals this kind of abundance and this kind of exclusivity. Am I abundant or financially irresponsible? But yeah, no, it's great. Big fan. But like, that's not the point. Online food is in fashion, known for romanticizing everyday life. Gen Z creators on social media are swapping the luxury bags and Zara separates in their hauls and unboxing videos for smoothies and sandwiches, and audiences are eating it up. With millennials, my generation, we're always looking to tie ourselves to external validation and these markers of who we are as a person. Your coffee shop, your supermarket, the neighborhood you live in, they all become these badges. This is me. I'm a West Hollywood Alfred coffee shop Erewhon girl, which is very true and not exclusive to millennials, but also to Gen Z. I feel like I mention this in almost every single one of my videos at this point, where Gen Z is so obsessed with being able to like put themselves in like a category and like brand themselves as a person, which I think is very interesting. And it just feels good to be able to be like, oh yes, I'm a this girly, I'm a that girly, I'm that girl, you know, like it's just like, it's so strong in the trend cycle and the zeitgeist, and I think that's why people are willing to take out an additional job just to pay for Erewhon. Now, Gen Z has gained a reputation for having interesting spending habits and an odd perspective on money. Like, I get why people are kind of having this approach to money because, well, I don't know if we're going to be alive in like 30 years, so might as well spend the money now. Like, why save for a future that's not guaranteed? We might all sink into the ocean before we're 50, so I'm going on that Spain vacation. I'm buying the $20 smoothie. Credit card debt, who? It's just a number on a screen. It's not real. I'm just a girl. Gen Z and millennials are known to be some of the biggest participants in luxury fashion. Gen Y, also known as millennials and Generation Z, accounted for all of the luxury market's growth last year, according to a report from Bain & Co. Spending by Gen Z and the even younger Generation Alpha, or those under 13, is expected to make up a third of the luxury market through 2030, reflecting a more precocious attitude towards luxury among the younger ranks than older generations, the report said. So I'm finally getting to the quote from that article I mentioned about taking out a third job to shop at Erewhon. Spencer, 23, makes roughly $40,000 annually as a freelance voiceover artist, content creator for a hummus company, and college essay tutor, forcing her to share a carpeted, unair-conditioned apartment in Brentwood with a roommate. Yet she is not willing to give up one luxury, Erewhon. Gen Z's like, don't let being broke stop you from enjoying the finer things in life. And to that I say, yeah. I mean, I don't support racking up credit card debt. Like, debt really sucks. As someone who has student loan debt, I wish I didn't have it. Thankfully, I have a good paying job that allows me to make those monthly payments and still enjoy my life, but it is such a weight to carry around. But I think Gen Z is kind of just like completely like dissociated from like financial responsibility because we live in such a chaotic time, and the economy sucks, and it's like live in the moment, be free, worry now, pay later, or never, who knows. Klarna. So I kind of get it. I understand the desire to like have something that you can enjoy, something that makes you feel fancy, and even if it is expensive, like, you know, you gotta have something. And, you know, Erewhon has gotten some backlash about only catering to an affluent audience and being very exclusive to other tax brackets and class groups, which Tony has responded to, by the way. He said, Tony shrugs off criticisms that the company caters only to the affluent to the exclusion of the 99%. It doesn't bother me because it is true, he says. We are catering to the affluent, but only because the raw ingredients cost so much more. Unfortunately, it puts certain demographics out of reach. But we shouldn't be shamed for that. Why should someone not be able to eat organically because it's not for the masses? He ate you broke bitches up. He said, yes. But Erewhon turns no one away. And if you have $7 for a pizza slice, or even $18 to splurge on a smoothie, the lifestyle is anyone's for the taking. if for only a little while, says Israel. Erewhon's significance in the culture reflects both a millennial and Gen Z shift in spending, from material goods toward experience, and a shift in desire from designer clothes towards designer bodies. Ooh, ooh, the designer bodies part. Ooh. No, but he's right though. Like, they're being very honest, but it's true. Like, homegirl is making 40K a year, but she is not giving up that Erewhon. She will spend the $7 on that slice of pizza because, yes, desires have shifted. And Erewhon's like, we don't care where you come from, as long as you're willing to cough up the coin, that's your business. And there are people who are like making it work just because they want the Erewhon. They want it. To each their own, I suppose. It is expensive to eat healthy. It is a privilege to be able to buy mostly organic foods and also have the time to prepare the food. Like, if you're making meals at home all the time from scratch, like, that does take time, and that's a luxury. But you can eat healthy without paying Erewhon prices too. There are ways. But with all that being said, shall we talk about the economy for a second? I know, boo, boring, but listen. The economy is a big reason why all of this is happening right now. Food in general is so expensive. During the last federal election of November 3rd, 2020, food inflation was running at just 3.9% annually. Fast forward to March 2024, and the latest data shows food prices have risen a whopping 25.8% since then. To put that in perspective, a basket of groceries that cost $100 in November 2020 would now set you back $125.80. That's an increase of nearly $23 for the exact same food items. Basically, economy bad, food expensive. And so, like I've been saying throughout this whole video, we've been seeing this economic shift with food and basic necessities, affordability of life, and popular culture and trends, and also like the way that celebrities are using food now. I've seen a few great videos from this one creator.
This is the biggest food waste I've ever seen, and I don't even think anything can come close to this. Like, we have to look at Rachel Antonoff's party. I honestly don't even know, where food is used not just as decor, but food sculptures. It's art. It is not just being put out as a tablescape or decor. It is literally being sculpted into art for people to look at or post beside. I know that I specifically talk on this app about how as food is going to become more expensive, we're going to start seeing it more in popular culture, because like, what a way to flex wealth and privilege than when no one can afford food and there's currently like famines, to have excess amounts of food around, just like in the olden ages. But this is more than I ever thought we would possibly see. Like, and again, like, there's cute ways to do food, especially like if it's going to be a trend, like interesting clothing ways to do it and stuff like that. But like, this is just food waste. Like, you can't even eat this after. Everybody's hands have been on it because it's literal sculptures.
And once people start using excessive amounts of food as simple decor, you know something's going on in the economy and the world. Like, something's messed up. And maybe, you know, they could have done this 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and it wouldn't have been such a big deal. But it is a big deal because now there's people who can barely afford groceries, bitches can't even buy eggs without their account going negative. Like, we are really in the trenches right now. And so it's kind of giving let them eat cake, you know, literally Dolly Parton cake to be specific, when rich people like the Kardashians can just wastefully use food that could feed families that some people can't afford right now as like frivolous decorations for parties that, you know, they're not going to consume all of. Maybe they donate it, that would be nice, but I mean, when it comes to things like produce, I seriously doubt that they're doing that. But it's just wild to see. Have you guys seen that tweet where it's like, economy so bad people are posting the groceries they want? That tweet alone, I think, inspired this entire video because it's so true. And the groceries look good. I'm like, yeah, that does look good. That's probably like at least $200, you know? It's crazy. I've never been to Erewhon. I did go to Happier Grocer when I was researching this video, which is essentially like the New York City version of Erewhon. I'm sure more stores like this will pop up as we continue to see people really lean into the expensive organic grocery stores. And I mean, it was fine. It was very Erewhon-esque in the sense that I got a smoothie that was $17. It was good, but was it worth $17? I don't think so. And like, they've pre-made stuff similar to Erewhon. I got a chicken salad and some sushi. It was okay. Like, it was fine. It wasn't bad, but you know, I don't know. I didn't really get it. But the store looks nice. It's like it looks like what I would imagine an Erewhon to look like, but just much smaller. And then like the stuff that you can buy, like the actual groceries, you can find at Whole Foods or other grocery stores. So I can't sit here and say if Erewhon's worth it or not. Thank you for watching this video. Go support Shameless Promo, and thank you again to MeUndies for sponsoring today's video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!